There is a black hole of information regarding World War II. The death hole between the fighting of the Chinese and the Japanese, we believe the numbers are between 20 to 50 million.
Jesus Christ.
Both countries are suppressing the information because Japan want to get on with their superpower neighbour. A Japanese soldier, Jaime Kondo, decided to disclose what actually happened through his own eyes. He joined the army where he explained the rigorous training process. He actually said that it was hell. He said death is preferable than training. He told countless gruesome stories, but here's one I cherry-picked. In his words, one day we were called out for bayonet training. We were led to the woods where we found Chinese men, prisoners of war, tied to trees. Each of the soldiers were told to run towards the Chinese and bayonet him. I was shaking. I ran, I stabbed, and it was easy. He said he felt praised. He said he was praised for his stabbing technique, and he felt good. He went on to say that gang rape was also commonplace. Jesus. We would catch a Chinese woman, and there'd be 20 or 30 of us to one. He didn't actually say Chinese woman, he said buta, which is Japanese for pig.
Damn.
Only the high-ranking soldiers got to take part in the gang rapes, so it was seen as an honour. There was one unusual occasion where the woman was not killed after the gang rape. She was brought along with the soldiers to the next military conquest. She was stripped naked down to only her shoes. She was holding her newborn infant, but couldn't keep up. A soldier grabbed the baby and threw them off the cliff. The mother screamed and leaped off the cliff after the baby to her death. The soldiers laughed and continued. And as you can imagine, as she was being raped beforehand by the 20 to 30 men, the baby was just cast aside, probably ripped out of her hands and thrown on the floor. Heartbreaking. I'll never understand why, if they are pigs or cockroaches or filthy inhumane humans, why are you raping them? You know, I mean, the Germans at least made it a crime for interbreeding with Jews, so at least they believed they were superior and that the Jew is disgusting. But it's evident when you are raping what you call filth, you are not really genuine. But yeah, this is a collection of stories. This book I thought was fantastic. It's a collection of gruesome stories. It's just what you want to read, you know, to kind of sober you up about,
make you realise how good you have it.
Yeah, you know, the brutalities of war. But do you want to get straight into it?
Straight into it. The annihilation of Japan. Straight in. The annihilation of Japan. One of the war's most infamous turning points, if not the outright most, is the use of 2 atomic bombs against Hiroshima and Nagasaki. What you may not know is that an even bloodier bombing campaign against Japan was waged only months earlier. I've never even heard of this.
Never heard of it, you know.
Author Lawrence Rees recalls meeting Paul Montgomery, one of the nicest people I've ever met, and who incidentally was a part of a B-29 bombing crew that laid waste to Tokyo in spring of 1945, racking up a kill count of at least 100,000 people. Of this number, Montgomery confirmed that a majority, if not a totality, were civilian non-combatants, women and children. And when the author asked him about it, he was like, yeah, we know there was civilians, but it was like, we had orders.
And
we had to do.
We always go on like the Americans retaliated for Pearl Harbor.
Yeah, no, they didn't retaliate against the military.
Yeah,
because the Pearl Harbor, it wasn't the civilians.
But not just that. But they go on like, oh, we dropped the bombs because of Pearl Harbor and whatnot.
Yeah, nah.
But did it seem like the Japanese were retaliating first?
Yeah,
the Americans would
100%.
But I never even
bombing cities.
I've never heard of this. You know?
Never heard of it.
So
you just hear about the Oppenheimer stuff.
But why I think this book is good is this book is not a book about indoctrination. It's a chilling exploration about the intoxicating power it holds. It's not merely about people committing heinous crimes. No, it's about them doing the unthinkable and feeling good about it. Slaughtering children, feeling good. Raping women, feeling great. Murdering someone who could be your brother, your neighbour, your loved one, not just without a trace of remorse or empathy, but feeling fantastic while doing so. Why? Because they are the enemy. They are filth. Vermin, less than cockroaches. They are beneath us and must be stopped at all costs. They are the insane ones. We are in the right and they are evil. It's the power of indoctrination and propaganda. And the most terrifying part, we are seeing it unfold before our very eyes right now. We say these things about Vladimir Putin, don't we? We say these things about Kim Jong-un.
Yeah.
So,
and if we don't say them, we think them.
Yeah. So, you know, they're crazy. They're psycho. They're mad with power. It's crazy.
Of course we're mad about power.
Ever see someone going mad about power?
Yeah, literally. It's boring. No one listens to you. But, long live Stalin, the alleged defiant last words of many of the Jewish victims of the Lithuanian killing fields. This was revealed to author Lawrence Rees by Petrus Zelionka, a Lithuanian farmer who was formerly a Nazi collaborator in the early 40s. A mass murderer, Zelionka was part of a Lithuanian army unit that would take people from the ghetto into the forest. Jewish men, women, children alike, they would shoot them all dead without ceremony and then get into their cars and drive away. Something Zelionka would spend 20 years in a Soviet gulag for as penance. Half a century later, however, the Lithuanian would go to his grave, categorically unapologetic to partaking in the mass murder of children. So there was, the Nazis believed Jews had to be sterilized from Europe by any means necessary. There was a lot of a bad blood from the First World War. Germany was forced to sign the Treaty of Versailles, and it was basically looked at as Germany getting cucked. That's how a lot of Germans felt. So there was another German, and he said, he joined the SS, and he said his father was such a supporter of Hitler because he always used to talk over the dinner table about how Germany was getting cucked and Germany couldn't do this, Germany couldn't do that, Germany, you can't control our finances, we're not allowed an army, things like that. And all this kind of stuff is what kind of provided Hitler the theatre to take control, because Hitler was like, I'm bringing all this shit back. He said Germany's going to take control of this, and he said when Hitler took control of Germany, no one tried to stop him. He just walked in and said, yeah, I'm running things now. He made himself chancellor, and it was the kind of thing that they just believed Jews had to be sterilized from Europe by any means necessary, and they just didn't really give a shit what they had to do to achieve. They was even in Auschwitz, they would just slaughter.
I don't know. I've watched a few documentaries, and I don't know if people always believed all of this stuff about the Jews, but when Hitler made it the law, it was like
his supporters came up from where his supporters were. It came out of the woodwork, basically.
Here's another story that I liked, is the wrong word. In World War II, a Japanese officer by the name of Masayo Emoto, who was controlling a town in China, heard of a Chinese woman returning. This intrigued him, so he went to investigate. He found her, and she spoke a bit of Japanese. He asked her why she was here, and she said, everybody told me not to come, but I said that the Japanese are not bad people, and there's nothing to be scared of. Masayo said to the interview, anytime I saw a woman, I felt like I wanted to rape her, so I did.
Damn.
Yes, she struggled a bit, but she was powerless to stop me. Normally, after I rape a woman, I kill them. So that's what I did. I stabbed her in the abdomen with my sword. At this point, I realised that none of the guys had had any meat in a while. She was freshly dead, so I dismembered her. I picked the meatiest parts, and I shared it with my comrades. They didn't ask where I got the meat from, and I didn't tell them. The meat was tender. It tasted like pork, but better.
Yeah, long pork is what they used to call human meat. But it's just the nonchalant and casual way with which he's saying these kinds of things. It's like he doesn't even know that he's committed the heinous crime.
He's just like, they're the enemy. They were vermin.
He was like, 100%. That's what you do.
I was doing my job.
That's what you do.
If I didn't, someone else would have.
Literally, they should.
I don't do this sort of thing now, but at the time, when I was younger, when I was, fiery,
no shame.
What I did.
Yeah, no shame.
He doesn't. That's
see her as
what all of the stories were. It weren't just the heinous crimes. It was the nonchalant. Or feeling good about it.
The children are not the enemy. The enemy is the blood in them. A quote by Oscar Groening, a former SS officer at the Auschwitz death camp during the war. Interestingly, when Groening was first posted to Auschwitz at 21 years old, he was outraged at the sadistic behaviour of his fellow SS officers. Large swaths of prisoners would be transported in, and the fit to work would be selected, and the rest would be gassed immediately or shot in the head where they stood. Groening remarked that he found the physical treatment of Auschwitz's prisoners excessive. He once saw an SS officer grab a child by the leg and throw it onto a lorry. When it cried, the officer smashed its head against the side of the lorry to silence it. He voiced his misgivings to his superiors and said that Jews must be exterminated, but let it at least be done within a certain framework. So it wasn't the fact that he didn't disagree with the fact that Jews had to be exterminated from Europe, but he was just like, the implementation of the kind of methods is a bit much. So this is just another dynamic to how people are dehumanizing other groups of people in order to justify how the heinous crimes have been committed against them. So,
and it was so brutal. They would use the Jews to kill the Jews. So
literally,
they were trying to remove themselves from the acts. And stuff like that.
Groening is famous for justifying the murder of Jewish children by claiming that the children weren't the enemy, rather their potential to grow up to be dangerous Jews. The principle of annihilating Jewish people was not abhorrent to him, merely the extreme methods being used. Despite surrendering to the British at the end of the war, Groening was put on trial in 2014 at 96 years old for 300,000 counts of accessory to murder, and he actually got convicted. But there was a
They
whole...
never give them time though.
They was gonna give him time. He died already. He died in 2018, but they was gonna give him time. But there was like a whole tribunal about is he too old to give him time?
Yeah, they've convicted someone not long ago as well, and they gave him suspended sentence.
Yeah, there was like, there's no point. There's no point now. He's like so old. It's like you can't see.
They convict them just for the records.
For the records, because they want it on record. You got what you should have got. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
they can't let him off.
This book makes me do something right now that I hate doing, which is taking the moral high ground. It's easy to be disgusted at men that commit heinous war crimes, but what's not easy is to feel sorry for them. Yes, you heard right. It's not easy to feel sorry for them. How sick or broken do you have to be for you to be able to carry out these horrible acts with no remorse? What must you have seen or done or experienced to be able to take part or find enjoyment in acts of cruelty or violence? Does it sound like I'm making excuses for these animals? Maybe I am, but the fact still remains that you put a gun in a man's hand and you send him abroad to fight with his mates or brothers, and they haven't seen a woman for 6 months, mixed with the fact that he doesn't know he will live to the end of the day. It doesn't take long for diabolical behaviours to become irresistible.
It's a very short step.
Is it an evolutionary behaviour? Because think about it, if you're going to die at the end of the day, you'd think having sex, which is something you've done thousands of times, shouldn't be top priority. You'd think that you'd want to do all the things that they haven't done. You might even want to spend time with family members or whatnot. But in times of war, when men believe that they're going to die, soldiers have been known to rape as many women as they possibly can. Is this an evolutionary behaviour that we're programmed to do? Pass on your genes before it's too late? By any means necessary?
Perhaps. I think it's definitely worth talking about. It's definitely worth considering.
Should men be excused?
Renaissance through combat.
I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do about the lie.
It's crazy. It's crazy. I've only got two. I say we just finish.
I say cool. I've actually only got one.
Super dark in here, by the way, guys. Renaissance through combat. Under Stalin, during the war, the Soviet Union made use of penal battalions, military divisions with ranks of furloughed convicts. One such conscript was Vladimir Kantovsky, a 19-year-old of Latvian descent who was jailed for 10 years in a gulag for distributing leaflets opposing the incarceration of his teacher, who had been overheard speaking out against Stalin by the secret police. First of all, 10 years in gulag is not like 10 years in prison. Do you know what I mean? In a gulag, you're in a room, you get let out twice a day to go to the toilet, they push that food through the cat flap, and that's life in a gulag. So, but imagine that now. I'm sure Stormzy said fuck the government and fuck Boris in one of his songs. Half a century ago, my man would have got bagged for that. The Soviet officers used to deploy these penal units for a maneuver called reconnaissance through combat. Basically, walk at the enemy and get shot so that the officers can gauge the extent of the German ground defences and observe their firing patterns. They also used to use them to clear minefields by walking through them. And that is insane that people thought that was preferable. How bad is the gulag? Why you're doing that to get out of the gulag? That is insane. They're literally like, you see that field? Just walk across that real quick. Yeah. We just want to see, and then you see, Shinado, bah! Do you know what I mean? You're like, it's crazy, it's insane. But, we know about Stalin. Joseph Stalin.
Well, it's funny, that's my next point. Arguably, historians discuss the most important moment of World War II, the deciding point, the action of one man that effectively saved the world. The man in question was Joseph Stalin. He had two decisions before him. Moscow was nearly surrounded. He could flee to the outskirts of Russia on his armoured train, or he could stay in Moscow and fight to the end. People don't realise how close Stalin was to fleeing. He had already finished packing his train. Some of his closest advisors had already begun boarding the train. It's almost like a spur-of-the-moment decision when Stalin decided, fuck it, I'm staying.
We fight to the end.
Stalin's first problem, an immediate problem, was that Russia was in a state of panic. People were slowly starving because of food rationing. There were robberies, looting, violence, everything you can imagine. Because, as usual, people lost their heads. Even soldiers were panicking and deserting. Joseph Stalin decided to fight fear with fear. He declared a state of siege. This meant that anybody not standing up to fight for the motherland could be declared a traitor and shot on the spot, regardless of rank. Vladimir Orgrigo, who was an officer in the NVKD regiment that was tasked with actioning Stalin's siege plans. He said, generally speaking, when you look at a soldier or at a man in that situation, whether or not he's an officer, when he's struck by panic, he loses control of himself. So you have to stop him in time. As we said back then, you have to give him a shake or even punch him, and you see him become a soldier again. If he resists or something or runs away, we eliminate them. We shot them. That's all. They weren't fighters, they were traitors.
Damn.
Russia went on to defeat Hitler as we know it. So should Stalin's war crimes be excused?
No, but
Really?
no, of course not. You can't excuse.
He did what need be done.
No, but come on, 20 million. This is what.
No, not all of his war crimes. I mean, this one specifically.
Oh, what in terms of declaring a state of siege
And
in terms
killing
of,
his own people who wouldn't stand there and fight.
yeah, I think
You got a
desperate
tough
times come for
decision.
desperate measures. Desperate
So
times
he
come
did
for
the
desperate
right
measures.
thing.
I think that it was justified, and it's probably looking at what we have now. It's probably for the greater good.
Yeah.
Looking at what we have now, looking at the way that the war
Well,
turned out.
definitely was
Because,
for the greater good.
like, one thing that Lawrence Reed said, which I think was extremely interesting, is that he kind of tried to justify the heinous crimes committed by the West, America, etc., by saying they was doing it to stop the Nazis, as opposed to the Nazis were doing things because this is the way the Nazis believe things should be done for the rest of time. Like, Hitler was going to continue wiping out Jews. He said, we will do it till there are no more Jews, and then we'll find somebody else to persecute, probably. Whereas America was like, we don't drop bombs on atomic bombs on people every week. Do you know what I mean? We're going to do this because the Nazis are a huge threat, and he kind of like tried to justify what they're saying. So
They killed 100,000 people in one night, though.
one night, they just
And they've done it multiple times
just
now to Japan.
bombed. Yeah, they literally
Japan
bombed
picked the
Tokyo
wrong
as well.
side, boy.
Do you know what's funny?
Oh, yeah,
Tokyo
that's what I was
still has the highest population of any city in the world.
So we didn't do enough of the job. But one thing I wanted to say that I didn't get to say is Tokyo is a living example of genocide, because how do you upgrade a city? Obviously, you look at Tokyo and it's all high tech, and it's
Yeah.
upgraded like that because it was razed to the ground.
Yeah, they started it with stuff that people didn't have when all other cities started.
Yeah, so, but we really got to wrap this up, though, because it is black. I don't even know if this is going to get uploaded.
I can't see my face. I just see sleeves.
Just teeth. Was that racist? But yeah, this is
borderline racist.
Till next time.
Till next time.